So today we're going to talk about trig 6. And in trig 6, you're going to be finding angle measures. So kind of up till now, except for just discussing it briefly on our calculators, when we've been doing all the exact values, our answers have been numbers, square root of 3 over 2, or square root of 3, or 1/2. But now our answers will be in angle measures, either in degrees or in radians. So if you remember, if I had the arc sign written like that, that's a second function on your calculator, and I said that's what you're going to use anytime you want to find an angle measure, or the arc cosine, or the arc tangent. It can also be written like this: the arc sine, the arc cosine, or the arc tangent. So anytime you see anything written like that, you know that your answer needs to be either in degrees or in radians. So let's take a look at it. Let's take a look at an example. Let's just do, I don't know, let's just do number 2 on trig 6. It says the arc cosine of 1/2. So once again, this is where those exact values will come in handy. You have to ask yourself, all right, where does the cosine equal 1/2? Well, if you remember from your chart, the cosine is going to equal 1/2 at 60 degrees. So if you also remember, that would be here, 60 degrees. All students take calculus. Well, there's another place in your unit circle where the cosine will equal 1/2. It's a positive 1/2, so it'll also be in this quadrant. And if your reference angle is 60 degrees here, then you know that this angle, let me take a different color, this angle from here to here will be the 360 degrees minus 60 degrees. So this will be here at 300 degrees. So you know the cosine is going to equal 1/2 at 60 degrees and at 300 degrees. So there will always be two places on your unit circle where it will equal 1/2. And that'll be true unless sometimes when you're at either 0, 90, 180, or 270, sometimes you'll only have one angle, but generally you'll have two. So let's take a look at another example. All right, let's say if I wanted to know the, let's see, let's do number 7, the arc sine of the square root of 3 over 2. This one says, number 7 actually says to answer it in degrees, but I'm going to answer it in degrees and radians just so you can see how that looks. So once again, they're asking you, where is the sine equal to the square root of 3 over 2? So again, if you think about your unit circle and if you think about your first quadrant, you know that it's going to equal the square root of, the sine will equal the square root of 3 over 2 at 60 degrees. But we also know that 60 degrees is also pi over 3. So 60 degrees or pi over 3 would be your first answer. But then you have to think, well, where else is the sign positive? Because square root of 3 over 2 is positive. So it's positive in this quadrant, but it would also be positive in this quadrant. So if this is pi over 3, this would be pi over 3. If you remember from talking about thirds, this would be 3 pi over 3, which means this one up here would be 2 pi over 3. So it's going to be at 2 pi over 3 as well. But again, now if we think in terms of degrees, if this here is 60 degrees, then this reference angle would be at 60 degrees, which means this angle right here would be 180 minus 60 degrees. So this would be 120 degrees. So the arc sine of the square root of 3 over 2 in degrees would be 60 or 120. And in radians, it would be pi over 3 or 2 pi over 3.